We are live.
Oh, there's magic coming. Oh, there's magic coming. Oh, there's magic coming. Where you gonna be tonight? Oh, there's magic coming. Oh, there's magic coming. There's magic coming. Get ready for the rest of your life.
Hello and welcome to SassafrasCast, the podcast full of witchy insights to help you lead your sassiest life. I am Rorie Kelly, a tarot reader, singer-songwriter, and all-around personal growth nerd from Long Island, New York. And if you are a patron and you're tuned in for the video, you may notice that I have a guest for the first time ever. This is Pattie Belle Hastings from SoulShepherd.love. I'm so excited to be interviewing Pattie Belle, and I thought / nagged her into just having her hang around for the whole broadcast. We're going to begin the Witchy Weather Report in just a moment, but first I want to give a shout out to my patrons. If you didn't know, you can support this podcast at patreon.com/Sassafras Tarot for $1 a month or more. This unlocks exclusive perks for you, including access to my exclusive Discord community, which honestly is such a great community. Y'all are so incredibly fun in the Discord. I love the talks that we have. I record these episodes live, and my patrons get a private YouTube link before each one so they can tune in and actually be like a live studio audience for the recording. Hang out in the chat. I just see someone popping in right now. Hello, Grayson. How you doing? Ask questions and get them answered in real time. They also get access to my Discord server where we talk about all things witchy and wonderful, and a shout out in each episode, which, speaking of which, here we go. Pattie Belle from SoulShepherd.love, who happens to be here today, Melissa Marie, Rachel Miller, Anti-Fragile Tarot, Grayson, Savannah Tillett, B from Whimsical Weekend, Millie Orozco, Ruby Marchetti, and Rebecca Jones. I'm so grateful you're in my world. I have a couple of new patrons this episode, and that just feels wonderful. I love that that list keeps getting a little longer each time, and I'm amazed that I'm getting through it now without tripping my tongue up. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast. So, I'm going to get going with the Witchy Weather Report, but first I want to give you a sneak preview of today's show because it is going to be different from any other SassafrasCast episode we have had in the past. Hey Judith, I've got some of the patrons coming on in the chat. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being a part of this. We'll be going periodically to the live chat to just see what people have to say or answer questions that may come up. So every section or so, I'll be stopping in and checking in on you guys. Thank you for being a part of this. So my special guest today is Pattie Belle Hastings from SoulShepherd.love. Pattie Belle's a wonderful human that I virtually met during 2020. It's amazing how many people I connected with over the year when we weren't allowed to leave our homes. And she's just a force of nature. She embodies the crone on a throne archetype. I think I have to put like a trademark symbol after that because I think that is her catchphrase that I absolutely frigging love. Pattie Belle has so much wisdom and also just so much practical energy, and has a website called SoulShepherd.love where you can connect with her. She is a hypnotist and past life regression specialist. Pattie Belle, because I don't want to butcher what you do, why don't you tell a little bit about what you do and what your mission is with Soul Shepherd?
So just briefly, so that we can get into the witchy items, Soul Shepherd is the website that I operate out of. I specialize in hybrid hypnosis, is what I call it, because I take and synthesize a bunch of different methods. Every single client is handled differently. Every single client gets a different protocol, which includes traditional hypnotherapy practices between lives, past lives, and my special area is divine finances, and that's combining our financial issues and our spiritual life to clear out and make room for prosperity and flourishing.
I love it. I'm going to, full disclosure, I'm going to let you all know that I have been working with Pattie Belle in her Divine Finances program, and I found it so transformative. At times, the kind of transformation that has me going like, oh my gosh. And at times, the kind of transformation that's just like, wow, this isn't a problem anymore. Amazing. And that's what real growth looks like. I don't want to scare anyone away, but we all know here, because this is not a toxic positivity podcast, that real growth does make you go, oh my gosh, ah! There is like possum gift screaming, ah, that's part of growth. It's, it's just life. So
But the great thing about this, there is, shadow work.
Yeah.
But you've got somebody with you going into it.
That's really true. And you are such a loving guide, Pattie Belle. You really know how to steer the direction so that if something does feel traumatic or overwhelming, you can steer back to a place of healing and wisdom that doesn't feel like, oh gosh, now what do I do with this? Which is definitely what I think some people face when they do shadow work alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That beautiful sound is the sound signaling the incoming witchy weather report. That is me shuffling my Dragon Tarot deck. I'm going to be pulling a card for us all. And my intention for this card is that it lead you who is listening or watching right now, whatever day it is, wherever you are, it lead you towards the guidance and information you need right at this moment in your life. And while I'm shuffling, I will cover a couple of topical things if you are tuned in fairly quickly after this episode airs. At this moment when I am recording, which is Tuesday, nope, it's not Tuesday, it's Monday, June 21st, 2021, Mercury is in retrograde. And by the time this podcast hits Spotify and iTunes and all of that, Mercury should be out of retrograde. What a beautiful, beautiful thought. So Mercury's been in retrograde for 3 weeks. I have been for those last 3 weeks. If you've been watching me on the Witchy Weather Report on Saturdays or in the Discord, I've been talking about how, Mercury retrograde can be so wonderful and it can lead you sometimes towards wisdom that you just need to have. For example, the example I kept using is that every time I had a device problem, it was when I was like doom scrolling or something like that. It was something I really shouldn't be doing, and Mercury was gently leading me away. Anyway, I'm paying for it today because since the moment I woke up today, I have had nothing but it's like all the Mercury retrograde squeezed into one day. So here's hoping this broadcast goes well. So Mercury's going out of retrograde. That's beautiful. We're also going to have a full moon coming up this Thursday. That means the moon is currently waxing. And Thursday, which will be the, I don't even want to do the math, 24th, I think, of June, the moon will be full. Full moons are a great time for gratitude and reflection. On this show, I always encourage you to be grateful, not just to external forces, but also to yourself for all you've created in your life. And it's also a very powerfully magnetic time, and you can harness some of that energy towards a goal you're working on. Now, let me pull you a card to complete this witchy weather report, and then we're going to get into our interview. Our card for this week is the World.
Ooh.
Yeah. I love it. Oh, by the way, if you can't see this video live, Pattie Belle is sitting here taking notes, and I absolutely love it. That's why you're my favorite.
I'm like,
I'm like, this is the World, and Pattie Belle's pen starts moving. I'm like, yes.
I have to journal on this later.
Samesies. So let's talk about the World, because the World signifies the end of a chapter, but not yet the beginning of a new one. If you're watching this, and this is the first time a video replay is going to be available, so if you're hearing this as a podcast, you can actually visit me on YouTube by searching Sassafras Tarot and find the replay of this podcast, because I'm holding up to the screen, the World, on the Dragon Tarot by Peter Perkownick and Terry Davison. So, on this card, a beautiful dragon is literally wrapped around a globe. And we also see a landscape out surrounding, the dragon's up in the sky. We see this landscape kind of surrounding the dragon, which is this beautiful thing that kind of indicates that the fractal energy, right? We're always a part of something bigger. There's always another level. There's always another world on top of this world to consider. Life has many layers. We're reaching the end of a chapter at this time, and we are being encouraged rather than rushing into the next chapter, whether this be in our professional lives or our personal lives or our spiritual development, rather than rushing to the next level, to enjoy this as a plateau and to find our own value, to look back on this time and reflect on what we have brought to the table, what we have learned about ourselves, what skills we may have developed, what challenges we may have faced, and what our takeaway is. You know, how has this affected us? How have these last few whatevers affected us? Because I don't want to put a time box on it. I feel like we go through seasons in our lives, and sometimes a season can be as quick as a few days that are very meaningful, and sometimes it can be as long as months or a year. I think certainly like 2020 was a major season for many of us. So as we come to the end of this chapter, what have we gained from it? What has it taught us? What knowledge can we move forward with, making us wiser and more experienced people? And those are questions that I leave you with. I'm famous for doing the witchy weather report and just leaving you with questions. It's like, Rorie Kelly, go to the tarot for guidance. And I'm like, let me ask you 5 questions so you have more to think about than you did before. But you know what? That's what this journey is about. I am not the person who likes to give incredibly prescriptive advice other than for you to choose your own adventure and be mindful and consider these things. I consider these questions that I bring up to you to be the next step in your growth. That concludes our witchy weather report. I'm going to go right into our interview. And in the meantime, if you're tuned in, because I see a few people are tuned in, a couple of patrons are tuned in on the YouTubes. If you're tuned in, pop into those comments. If you have questions, either questions that you're just curious about for Pattie Belle, or comments about your own experiences, or questions about this topic, which is hypnosis and past life regressions, feel free to throw those questions into the chat. Or comments and thoughts, because we will be stopping every so often and checking in with the chat. And we want to get your questions answered. That's what's cool about getting to do this live. So, our topic of the day is the Pattie Belle show, basically. It's the multitude of things that you do, Pattie Belle, because you don't just do one thing. It's not just hypnosis, it's not just the past life regression, and that's also not the sum total of what you do. You really consider yourself to be a healer. So what I want to ask you at this time is, what are the different modalities that you use in your practice, and what do you feel like your ultimate goal is when you're working with yourself or a client?
So I combine a bunch of different modalities. The primary one that I started with was actually energy healing through Reiki, and then the first regression therapy that I was certified in starts the sessions with energy healing and balancing before going into the specific hypnosis. Energy healing can be extremely hypnotic. In fact, the very early hypnosis that was done in the 1800s, called mesmerism, is very much about energy and the manipulation and balancing and healing of energy. So that really dovetailed into my learning past life regression, between lives regression, and related modalities.
Wow.
Yeah. So the energy healing, you know, if you are familiar with Reiki at all, which is a Japanese form of energy healing, it's become very common. It's done in hospitals. You know, tons of people are being certified in Reiki and various energy healing methods all the time. And I find that it's a powerful combination with standard hypnosis practices, where you have an induction, you take someone into trance, and then you either lead them through a series of processes that help them with habits or fear flying or anxiety, those sorts of things. Or if they are soul seeking, then going into past lives, maybe healing things from this life. People that have done a lot of past life regression or on a serious spiritual path may really want to do a between lives regression, to help them understand what decisions and what choices they made before coming into this life to help them move forward on their path.
I love when you talk about between life regression because it's a topic that I didn't know existed until I met you. And it makes sense if like if you think about logically how reincarnation may or may not work, you're like, okay, well, there's got to be a minute in between where you're catching your breath, right? Are you just going from or is it just like, wham, okay, new body, here we go? And it's really fascinating to think of doing something like a between life regression and the possibilities that offers.
Yeah. So Brian Weiss, a psychiatrist who had a patient that spontaneously went into past lives, has really been sort of at the forefront of leading the past life regression movement, so to speak. Really brilliant man. Michael Newton, who has since passed away, he started the Newton Institute, developed further into the between lives and worked with a ton of people on the between lives experience, choices that we make about our soul group, who we come in to work with in this life, in our soul group, and some of the choices for learnings that we made. So I call this Earth School, right? And that we've come here to learn certain things, and we've come here with specific other souls to learn those things.
I really love that. I've got a question. I have a couple of questions that you and I talked about earlier, but I've got a question from the chat that I think is really interesting, which is, Pattie Belle, do you believe energy healing should be done in concert with allopathic medicine? And also, how much of your work is done or can be done online?
First question, I am a believer in Western medicine, and I also believe that we're energy bodies. And I think that the combination of things that we use are really individual, and some things work better for others than depending on what the circumstances are. I give myself a whole lot of Reiki. In fact, I've trained myself to do it in my sleep. I know this is going to sound weird, but I'll wake up after a dream and then I'll just put my hand on my heart and say Reiki on, and then go back to sleep with my hand on my heart. Yeah. So I think that they both have their place and in balance. And there are amazing things that Western medicine can do, and that we need to take advantage of that. But we also are emotional beings, energy beings, and we need to take care of that side as well. And we're not taught that. We're not taught how to manage our own energy, how to protect it, build and create boundaries, rejuvenate, re-energize. And, that's something that I like to do with my clients as well, is, teach them ways of grounding and, protecting, not only energetically, but like with clients, having good borders and boundaries with their work and their other human experiences. The second part of the question, Grayson, I primarily work online. I was working online before COVID. In fact, I was all online. And then that January 2020, I had just set up really a healing room in the attic of my house. So I never really got to use it except for like 2 or 3 times.
Oh my gosh.
But I have clients in California and the UK and all over the United States, Ohio, Massachusetts. So I do most of my work online.
That's really cool. And I have to say, having worked with you online, because we're in 2 different states, how powerful it can be. It's really, really special. And I also want to thank you, Grayson, for asking that question in this context about allopathic medicine, which for folks who don't know that term is, just a term for kind of what we think of as regular medicine, going to the doctor, and getting you checked up, getting your shots. And I want to put out there, because this is topical in the moment, we have an effective vaccine right now for a pandemic that's killed a lot of people, and I am fully vaccinated, and whatever spiritual things I do in concert with knowing that there have been real gains made in science that can protect me and others. So I'm going to fearlessly go out in favor of science. It's crazy that that's a thing to be fearful about in this day and age.
Yes, I feel so strongly about it, and I'm also vaccinated. I've been thinking recently that, well, we've reached a level where I'm at of percentage-wise that I really can start seeing people in person again. And I'm thinking about how to roll that out over the next couple of months.
That's really exciting. I would love to hear how that goes. So let me ask you, I know you mentioned several different modalities, and you, I know, have kind of arrived at defining yourself as a hypnotist as well as a past life regression specialist, and that being your primary healing modality. What is it about those two things that made you say, yes, this is it, this is me? What is it that brought you to it?
Well, that's a long story. I'm going to abbreviate it as best as possible. But if we go all the way back to like when I was 4 or 5, I was like an alien born into my family, a Southern Baptist family in the South. And at 4 or 5, I would think about death all the time. I don't know if that's common for 4 and 5-year-olds, but I was obsessed with death. And I just couldn't believe that there was no existence before, or that there would be no existence after, that there wouldn't be anything. So I came up with my little 4-year-old, 5-year-old theory of reincarnation.
Nice.
And
just typical kid stuff.
Yes. And I'd be like, ooh, what is the thing that lives the longest? Is it an elephant? Is it a tree? And then I was like, a rock. I'm going to come back as a rock. And then I started a massive rock collection at 4 or 5. But seriously, throughout my childhood, I had kind of mystical experiences that were unexplained, and I could not talk about them because I was, in a Southern Baptist family and taken to church every Sunday and all of those things. But over time, the experiences kept, sort of convincing me that there were things other than what we could see in front of us, that there were things beyond the material. And I went to art school. I read a book that changed my life at 18 called Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And I was like, meditation is the way for me. And I found a teacher, became initiated into a strict Eastern meditational path, which I followed and still follow 40 years later. Long, lengthy daily meditations. And as happens when you're practicing those sorts of things, information comes through. And in my 20s, I started remembering my own past lives as related to people that I was interacting with. It was like, oh, this is why, this triangle between me and these other two people is happening. It was really eye-opening and resolved some relational issues with that understanding that this wasn't the first time that we'd been together. So then I found, some of you will have heard of neuro-linguistic programming and self-hypnosis. And I started practicing those for, performance, for anxiety, for, just kind of like self-improvement. This was back in the 80s and early 90s. So there was no internet. We didn't know have access to all of the things that we do now. But I've found that hypnosis, self-hypnosis, and neurolinguistic programming was brilliant and really helped me overcome my own thinking processes, my own faulty thinking, my own anxieties. It was a powerful personal growth avenue. And then I just kept pursuing those, still meditating, doing the self-hypnosis, NLP, started teaching my students these NLP and self-hypnosis methods through podcasts and other audios that were available online. They saw huge results in their performance in college and things like that. And then I'm going to say about 5-6 years ago, I started seeing a past life, between life regressionist, started doing practices, these practices on my own. And then I was like, I think I could do this. I think I could. And I was looking in Connecticut at the time, and it was like, there was nobody here doing it, or like there was 5 people in the entire state. There was just no one doing it. So I was like, I could do this. I could provide this service for people. So I started the training about 3 or 4 years ago and have been practicing and training in lots of different methods ever since then.
I love that. I love that aha moment. Like, oh, I could do this. It doesn't just have to be something that helps me. I could do it too.
Right. Yes.
I love that stepping into your power moment as a fellow, like, soul-centered entrepreneur. A word that I have found like has some interesting connotations for people, but for me it's just like, well, this is what it's like. I have a calling and it is my business, and the two are married,
Yes.
I love that. So Grayson has a question that is related to the next question I was going to ask. And by the way, Grayson says, sorry if I'm asking too many questions. No, ask all the questions. I really love it. But I was going to quote yourself to you, because when we were getting ready for this episode, something that came out of your mouth was, past life regression therapy is not about finding out if you're Cleopatra. It's actually to heal energy strands or emotions that have been carried through lifetimes. I wrote it down because I was like, damn, off the cuff, we're just preparing. We're not doing the podcast yet, and this wisdom comes out. And I'm like, I wrote it down. And so I wanted to ask you, and this ties into Grayson's question. My question is, we both have professions that some people consider to basically be parlor tricks, right? Mm-hmm. Some people think it's entertainment. Some people go so far as to view what we do as, like as though we are charlatans, like taking people's money for something that is pretend, that kind of thing. And obviously, I think neither you nor I view what we do that way. I know my personal answer for it, which is that I found it has value regardless of what belief you put on it. Of course, I'm talking about tarot, but I'm talking about your stuff as well, because I have worked with you. And I've found that having a light heart around what I do and don't believe in has helped me to just find the growth. But Grayson's question is, have you ever done a regression for someone unsure about past lives? And how did that go? And I want to tack on there, how do you kind of respond to and, what is your personal philosophy when someone comes at you like as though what you do is nonsense?
Well, fortunately, I'm surrounded by healers, and I have a bubble around me, so I don't run into that very often. You don't have to believe in past lives to get therapeutic benefit from this process. I'm simply guiding someone into their subconscious, superconscious, unconscious, whatever term best fits, whoever I'm talking to. I'm guiding you into your superconscious. Your superconscious is delivering scenes, experiences, and emotions, sometimes very strong emotions. And these can look like a past life. Right? It could be some other period of time. It doesn't really matter if you believe it is a past life. If you can gain understand the emotions, where they're coming from, even look at the story as a metaphor of some issue, because you've come to me for some issues. If you can look at it as a metaphor or a story unfolding around the issues that you're looking to improve upon or heal, then it doesn't matter whether you believe in it or not. I've had clients who were like, I'm not sure, I hadn't really thought about it, but I really do want to make progress on my money stuff or my relationships or whatever. And they have had profound experiences with multiple past lives. And they usually walk away feeling, yes, this is a past life I've experienced.
Mm-hmm. I'm one of those clients, by the way. I've worked with Pattie Belle, we've had a few sessions now, and I really did come to it like, hey, I'll give it a try. I'm sure it's going to be interesting, and I am excited about what you're doing. And if I kind of felt like I was so excited about divine finances, and if past life regression is part of the deal, sure. And that describes my spiritual attitude, which is very I'm open to things. I've in my 30s now, I'm less about what I specifically believe in, and belief as being this black and white thing, and I'm more curious about belief being a tool and keeping an open mind about what is and isn't true, and instead being open to these experiences. And as you said, I do find that there's so much value to be had from these experiences, kind of regardless of, it's interesting because my attitude is still a little bit, I always have this agnostic attitude. It's like the curse of who I am. But I had an experience with you that was really meaningful, and a couple of things really made me go, wow, that explains a certain dream I've always had throughout my life. The person that we kind of accessed in our session was a smoker. I have never smoked, and I hate cigarettes. And yet all my life I've had dreams where I start smoking again. If you can't see this, I'm making air quotes right now. And I know exactly what a cigarette would feel like to smoke, and what it would feel like in my mouth and in my body and everything. And I wake up and I'm like, what the hell? I hate cigarettes. I don't do that. So that was a really just one of those interesting things that makes you go, wow, I can see there being, I can see how this is really meaningful. And it also does fall on the, then what we continued to explore, I wasn't sure how much of it was my subconscious serving up to me what I needed to work on, and how much of it was this factual thing. And I found over the course of thinking about it for a few days that I didn't care, because it really helped me so much, so it's interesting. I have this fascinating place now where I'm on this precipice of, I don't know what I believe, but I know I'm excited to continue, I'm excited to continue on this adventure and learning what it has to offer me. And I encourage people to take that attitude around your spirituality. I think a lot of people come to these practices with I'm going to prove or disprove certain things. And there's a beauty to following the scientific method and trying to get a greater understanding of, these esoteric topics. But there's also a beauty to just being on your own journey and being like, well, whatever I am served, I'm going to assume it's for my learning, and I'm going to learn all I can along the way. That's been very thrilling for me.
There are plenty of people out there that are doing the evidence-based, there are a bunch of children who have come in with very strong past life impressions. They are talking about, their plane crashing, they, were in the army, they've got all of this documentation from all over the world of children, particularly children, because there's no way they could know these things.
Yeah. You hear about that all the time.
Yes. So it's fascinating, the documentation that is amassed in proving that, what these kids, they're 4, they're sometimes 2, 3, 4, and they're, sharing these past life experiences about who they were.
Yeah.
If people are really interested in that, then, they can look up some of these documented cases. I have one little client anecdote that I'll share here. So I have my protocol and rituals that I go through in preparing for a client session. And one of those is I always draw a card from this deck, Pattie Belle Spirit Keepers Tarot. And I draw a card to give me an idea. I'm not a tarot reader, but my spirit guides communicate with me through this deck. And I always draw a card before the session to give me some idea of maybe a spirit guide that will be assisting us or something about the session itself. And I was about to start a client session for a client in the UK, and I pulled the Chariot. And this is like my third session, and I'm wondering how this fits with this guy, because it just doesn't make sense to me. And we've gone through the induction, the energy healing, all of that sort of stuff. And then I take him into a past life, and I say, okay, what are you seeing, sensing, feeling, knowing? And he says, I see a chariot.
And you're like, boom.
Like, oh, okay. This is quite literal. So, but it turns out, then he's like, I'm in a forest. I'm like, a forest? What?
A forest with a chariot.
A forest with a chariot? This is, so as he goes into this, he's like, I'm in Germany. I'm German. This is a Roman battle. We've just won. He's going through the whole thing, the emotions, the, connection to, his comrades, the battle scene. He's going through details. And I was really curious because I knew nothing about Roman chariots in German forests. So sure enough, I went to Google and I did a search after the session, and I just typed Roman battle, German forest.
Why not?
And sure enough, the Battle of Teutoburg Forest comes up. And it was in 9 CE. And I'm reading this historical page on it, and it is exactly what he described. And this is not, this is not like a guy that knows anything about this, is a history buff or any of those things. And I just thought that was really curious and fascinating. Most of my sessions are not like that, but it's very curious. And then the card I pulled for you, Rorie, remember
I remember having a big moment, and I can't remember the card now to save my life.
Was called the Malaise. Let me see if I pulled it. Yes.
Right, and this is one of
so
these...
the nine of...
Is that 9 of Wands right there?
Yes, the 9 of Wands. The 9 of Wands, and Pattie Belle calls it the Malaise, which was like exactly the life that you went to.
It really was. And I don't mind sharing this because I'm someone who's like really open about like my personal experiences here. The life that I went to really was like, the story of the life was that this woman kept waiting to start living. It really was like there were things that had to be done. And as soon as she got through those, she was going to, take a trip, travel, go to Paris, like have an exciting life. And she just kept meeting her responsibilities and found herself old and regretful that she hadn't ever really lived. And I have to tell you, it's something, the reason too, I found it meaningful apart from me needing to believe in anything, similar to dream interpretation. I was like, what a corollary to my life, which for those of you who don't know this about me, I'm a little bit of a workaholic. I'm a Virgo. I'm very good at delaying gratification for something I'm working towards. And I have, much of my journey about being an entrepreneur and like kind of having my career on my own terms has been about me giving myself permission to not do quote unquote the work I'm supposed to do, to not just quote unquote meet the responsibilities every responsible person is supposed to meet, but to trust enough that like what I want to do is valid and important, and it's just so fascinating to have had this past life experience that really was me grappling with and ending up on the wrong side of that equation. And here I am, and it literally is my life. It literally does feel like, well, here's obviously, this was the problem that whatever, passed between life Rorie was like, here's what we're figuring out for this one.
Yes. And, if you look at like the relationship with your grandmother, your mother, the soul group that you came in with, there was no way you were going to have that mundane life again. No way.
It's true. I grew up surrounded by artists, surrounded
Yes.
by, there's so much psychic history in my family that it's so funny. Like, ask one of your relatives. I'm saying this to the world, not to Pattie Belle. Ask one of your relatives if anyone in your family is a little psychic, and like an older relative, because you'd be amazed how many stories come out that you just like, people just don't talk about, or like whatever, people don't feel comfortable sharing these things. And it's amazing. Every conversation I have with one of my relatives, I learn something new that I'm like, wow, that happened too.
Yeah.
And I'm surrounded by artists. My grandmother, who was a reader and a gifted psychic, was also a very gifted painter. My mom is a musician. My dad is a musician. There was no way I was having a normal, like, Leave It to Beaver, like, follow the usual track of school, college, job type of life. It just wasn't possible.
No. I think, and I think if we go into a between live session, I think we're going to see some of that, the choices that you made, after that last life, coming in. I don't even think we need to go into the between live session for us to figure that out, actually.
Yeah, I do feel like it really, I'm looking back like, well, no wonder. I think that's so, I think it's very interesting. And I think maybe you can hear this, listeners, viewers, that I'm still here. Like, I spend my life not knowing exactly what I believe, but it's been so meaningful to me to have this context to work with. And it really has, I have to say, like, I had that session, and I had like the possum screaming gif reaction, which is how I respond to all spiritual growth, for like 2 days. And I was journaling, and I was like trying to sort out how I felt about it. And at the end, I really had to, like, I made some very concrete changes, and I really like started doing things like putting vacation time on my calendar, which I can't remember the last time I've had a vacation, but I can tell you it's less, it's more than 7 years, because I got married in 2014 and we never got around to having a honeymoon. So, oops. So I guess my point being, like, it had the part 2 effect that you keep talking about as a healing thing of helping me change behavior that was self-sabotaging me,
Yeah, which is really the point. If we go back to the Cleopatra quote, it's like, we weren't famous people. We were a baker in, old London or something. We were, we were generally just regular people at that point in time, having a regular life. But the learnings, the emotions, the experiences that we had in that life, are what we can learn from and heal in this life, heal things in this life. So it's really not about, a tourist, the tour of the world, but rather to take those things and use them, to help ourselves grow in this life.
So what I'd love to ask you as a follow-up to this, because it's clear how much this is really all about healing for you, healing and growth and learning, and that the cycle we're on, and what I want to ask you is, what does this look like for you as someone who considers themselves a healer? What other tools do you use when there is this kind of, crisis moment that someone uncovers, or a realization of, like, this is the trauma that's been affecting me, not just for this life, but for a while now.
For a while now.
Yeah. What does your path look like at that point?
Well, everybody comes in with different things, and a lot of what, I see in terms of, the emotional issues that we carry from life to life, they're in relationship to other people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the emotional charge. So if it's really a difficult relationship of some kind, there might be cord releasing. We'll call in other supportive beings from our team and spirit to support us in the process. The person's subconscious or superconscious mind will often know exactly what needs to be done. So that's what we'll query first. The spirit guides are assisting us in this process. They're with us, so we can ask them questions. The superconscious mind can know things. If there are connections to, deities, other, spiritual beings or belief systems, those can be brought in as well. And then sometimes it might be as simple as a series of affirmations. Like, I had a client the other day who had done such a beautiful job filling out the intake forms that there was like this whole list of affirmations from the wise self. So I just tacked on a session, a recording at the end of the session. I said, okay, we're going to stop the regression here, and then we're going to start a new recording. And I recorded a whole series of affirmations that came from her wise self that she can listen to every day until she embodies them. So yeah, so it's really individual to whoever I'm working with.
Yes, I can really see that. And I know with me, there was definitely like some cord cutting involved. You introduced me to the concept of there being multiple cords between me and another person, and cutting the unhealthy, harmful cords while being able to leave the healthy cords intact, which is a really healing thing, I think, for anyone who has, challenging relationships to hear that, because so often it's very black and white. It's like, cut the cord, burn the bridge. It's okay to cut people out of your life, which I'm here to tell you, if you've been abused or anything like that, yes, it is okay to cut those people out of your life.
Yes.
But I think many of us have those relationships where, there was some toxic things, and we still really love and care about this, family member or longtime friend or whatever. And it's very helpful to have a modality of like, why don't we find a way to create those boundaries spiritually, cutting the cords that are harmful, which hopefully I think translates into identifying what boundaries we need to set to have that healthy connection, in a very practical way.
Yep, exactly.
And I don't mean to make this whole thing about me and my excuse me, and my past life regression.
But it's a great.
I think it's
great for you. It's great for you to be able to say, because I can convey client tidbits here and there, but you have gone through this process, and they can ask you questions, and you're sharing from your side, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And I am one of those, I guess you would consider like more skeptical clients or whatever. But I'm at the point in my life where I revel in not knowing what I believe. And I don't think me 20 years ago would feel that way. But I'm at the point in my life where it's like, do I believe in this? Who cares? It's interesting and it's helping, and or do I believe in this? And if it's negative and not helping, I'm like, I'm deciding I don't.
Yes.
And it helps. It's so, it's very freeing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My, one of the sayings of my guru, when he was alive was, to wear the world like a loose cloak.
I love that.
And I just expand that to beliefs, to, relationships, anything that we might become too attached to. Yeah.
I love that. Well, this leads me to two things. We're going to move into Which You Got This in a moment, which is the section of the podcast where we give you something real and actionable. Pattie Belle has prepared a short grounding hypnosis, and we are going to actually collaborate on this hypnosis, and I believe lead you to a spirit guide And I am so excited about this because if you know me, you know I'm a musician. You know I do a lot of live looping, and I'm actually going to be like putting some meditation music in the background for this, so this can be a collaborative experience. I'm absolutely thrilled to do this. But first, I want to ask you, Pattie Belle, because it's important to get to this part. How can people work with you? What does that process look like? How can they get started, and how can they find you on the internet? All of those questions.
Okay. The easiest way is to go to SoulShepherd.love. I have a wonderful 16-minute flourishing self-hypnosis that you can download and get on my email list. I don't send a lot of emails. You're not going to be spammed. I'm not like a hard sell person. I realize that this is for the right people at the right time, and they will find me. So SoulShepherd.love, I highly recommend that you schedule the free 20-minute strategy call with me. Rorie's been through that. You get 20 minutes of my time. I take you into a little process. You will come out of that with clarity. And I don't do a hard sell or anything like that. I just love, sharing this process with other people. So if you want clarity, sign up for that free strategy call. And I promise you it will be a valuable 20 minutes of your time.
I'll say that for me, I'll just be the little, your guinea pig and say like, flourishing is a great meditation. And one of those things that you listen to it again and it's a different experience each time. But B, I want to just share that you like draw on your skills as both a teacher and someone who has worked with like corporate coaching and stuff like that, to make those 20 minutes incredibly impactful on that strategy call. Because it is a deeply it's both a spiritual experience and a very actionable experience. So I'm just going to share that for anyone who is considering it. Wow, this is someone who packs a powerful punch because she has skills from so many areas of her life.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The Mutual Appreciation Club.
I know. Well, I wouldn't have you on if I didn't feel that way. Definitely I'm not one of those interviewers who's like, well, what about this?
There's also the Soul Shepherd Facebook page. Yes. If you want to like or follow that. And then if you want to get in early, I haven't really booted it up yet, but it is there. If you search for the Divine Finances group, I'm going to be starting up some content release to that Facebook group over the next couple of months. So you can sign up for that as well so that you know when I'm doing special things around money and spirituality.
Yes, I'm very excited about you starting to boot that group. I joined it as soon as you created it the same day. I was like, yes, Divine Finances group. This is where it's at. 2021, the year of Divine Finances. So yes. Please, I'm going to have these links in the show notes, but please check out SoulShepherd.love is your core link right there. That's a full link. .love is the end of the address, like .com. It's .love. And, find SoulShepherd.love on social media. And, she makes these really, really neat posts on Instagram and Facebook that kind of give you a little tidbit of something to think about for your journey each day. So I really love when those pop up in my feed as well. So let's get to which you got this.
Let's get to it.
By the way, thank you, Judith. Judith is in the comments right now saying, ladies, this is fabulous. I'm finding this so deeply helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith.
Always my goal. This is my first time doing an interview on this podcast. I had said I didn't want to do an interview podcast because for me, I don't like the podcasts that are just like interview every week a different person. I know a lot of people love that format. And I wanted it to be a more kind of, here's my journey and you're on it with me. But the truth is right now, Pattie Belle, you are part of my journey. And now that I have StreamYard, I have the ability to kind of do these interviews. I'm hoping I can do some more while keeping that kind of, solo journey, hermit Virgo vibe of some of my other episodes. That being said, let's lead everyone on a meditation.
Let's do a little meditation. Let me take a little sip of water. Good
idea.
This is just going to be a quick relaxation session that will relax the body, the mind, and the spirit. And then, bye, Grayson. Then we are going to enter our secret garden or our secret safe place and be introduced or meet with one of our spirit guides. It might be one that you've met with before. It might be a new one. So this is Sassafras Tarot and SoulShepherd.love, Rorie Kelly and Pattie Belle Hastings. And we're going to take you on a little journey. We call upon our I Am presence, our higher selves, and our teams in spirit of the highest light and resonance to witness, support, and activate this healing journey today. We ask that only those oriented to the highest light of source energy and who are aligned with our soul mission be allowed to work with us today. Please activate the highest help for our paths of wisdom. Activate our deep soul qualities of faith and courage to follow the guidance of our inner light, which assists us in generating the path of highest truth, light, and service. Deepest gratitude to our teams in spirit of the highest light and resonance, and so it is. So if you'll close your eyes and just settle into your breath, your breathing, your body. And I'll be counting backwards from 3 to 1, repeating each number 3 times. And each time I say the number, your sense of relaxation will triple, taking you deeper and deeper. With 3, we relax the body. Every exhale relaxes us further. With 3, each inhale releases tension. Each exhale spreads relaxation. With 3, the body relaxing. And 2, the mind relaxes on every exhale, releasing all thoughts, all preoccupations. With 2, relaxing the mind relaxing deeper and deeper, letting go, surrendering with 2. And 2 into 1, relaxing our spirit relaxing, releasing, surrendering with 1. Body relaxed, mind relaxed, and now the spirit relaxes with 1, settling into the breath. And you start to notice that you've arrived. You've arrived in that special place. Whatever place is right for you. It could be in nature, it could be at the beach, it could be in a forest. This is your special place. And you're just relaxing and basking in the relaxation. Every breath relaxing further. And you sense the breeze, the air on your skin, the light, the plants, to smell the smells that are in your special place. And just relax and say to yourself, I choose to be here. I choose to be here. And as you're relaxing, you might be sitting, you might be in a chair, on a bench, on the grass, on the beach. You might be on a picnic blanket with pillows. Super comfortable. And as you're relaxing, you call in a spirit guide. Please come to meet me. And this may be one that you already know, that you're already familiar with. Might be one that you've never met before. And they appear before you. You sense them, you see them, you know them. Once they've arrived in your presence, thank them. Thank you. Thank you for coming. We're so grateful. And then just ask them if they have a message for you today. It would be so helpful to have a message today. Just some small message before we head back into our worldly life. Once they've delivered the message to you, thank them. Tell them that you're going to come and meet them again. You want to get to know them better. You're so grateful for their help and their support and their assistance. Say goodbye. And as they leave, put your hand on your heart and just express gratitude for yourself for taking these few minutes to give this time to yourself, this little journey. Such a gift for yourself. And as I count you up to 3, as we re-enter the world, the sensory world, with 1, feeling the gratitude coming back into your body, with 2, starting to move around a little bit and stretch and feel back into the room, the world. And with 3, open your eyes, take a deep breath, and welcome back.
Pattie Belle, I have to tell you, I'm going to be listening to that myself when I can actually meditate.
I want to listen to it too. Yes. If you ever have me on again, we have to have like some talk about spirit guides, because there are so many stories I have about spirit guides.
Yes, please. Count
Other
me in
people's
on a
spirit guides,
guide
my
talk.
own spirit guides. Yeah, some really fun stories. Yeah.
Absolutely love that idea. I'm fascinated by the idea of spirit guides. I have this very interesting I don't know. I have both a little bit of a fear and awe of the idea of spirit guides because I have certainly had it nailed into me that you have to have like psychic protection and you don't know who you might meet, you know? And so there's a real part of me, and it's the same part of me that like can't watch a horror movie after dark and will have bad dreams. That's like, I don't know, spirit guides? What if it's pretending to be my spirit guide and it's really a super mean spirit? So
Oh
it's
yeah, I think we have to have the
interesting.
spirit guide show.
Yes, I love it. I'm here for the spirit guide show. I'm very excited by that idea. Because the other part of me is like, yeah, let's get guided. Let's get a mentor. Let's get
We need
going.
all the help we can get.
Yes, I'll take it. I'll take anything. I am done with doing it all myself. I'm like, please give me the tools. Give me the teachers. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you everyone who has been tuned in. Thank you for going on this journey with us. For $5 and up patrons, you get a bonus episode with every show, and that episode will include a longer meditation. And will you tell us a little bit about that, Pattie Belle? What your intent is for that?
So it will be a guided past life meditation, similar to the one that we just did with the spirit guide, only much longer and having an immersion in a scene or two of one past life.
Wow. I'm going to listen to that one too after we record it, not during. I mean, I'll listen while we record it. But, you know, it's kind of like not wanting to operate a vehicle while you're meditating. Don't record the meditation while you're meditating to the meditation. I'm really excited about that. So if you are a $5 and up patron, that is what is coming up for you on the bonus episode. And should be there right around the same time the episode drops publicly, right around the same time it goes to Spotify and iTunes and all of that. And for everyone else, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for listening to SassafrasCast and spending your time with us. It really means a lot. Time is precious. If you like this podcast, I humbly request that you give it a rating and a review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you could take a moment to share it with someone you think might enjoy it, I would be deeply grateful for that little mini signal boost. That's really how I want to grow with this grassroots sort of community of people who are excited about growth in spirituality and neat witchy stuff. If you would like to support this podcast financially and unlock exclusive benefits, you can do so at patreon.com/Sassafras Tarot for $1 per month or more. Patrons get access at various levels to things like extra content, personalized tarot pulls, a witchy Discord community, and more. If you have a question, idea, or suggestion, you can email me anytime at sassafrastarot@gmail.com, and that's spelled SassafrasTarot. You can follow me on social media at Sassafras Tarot on Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. If you would like to order a reading from me, you can do so at etsy.com/shop/Sassafras Tarot, or you can just, reach out and let me know that you want a reading. That works too.
And Rorie's readings are awesome.
Thank you. We just did a reading, Pattie
We
Belle,
just did a reading.
day.
Yes.
That is that is the big way I want to run my life and my business, is just supporting each other, mutual, beautiful, like communal interdependence where we all help each other on our individual paths. If you want to find Pattie Belle, please do. I recommend that you get a hold of that Flourishing MP3, which is a wonderful meditation that you can listen to, not while driving, but at other times. And you get that for free just by signing up to her email list. You can also sign up for a free 20-minute call with her, which I can tell you is like, it is not one of those sales pitchy kind of calls. It's a very powerful 20 minutes. And it does, it will leave you with growth, no matter what, even if that is the only thing you do. And you can do so at SoulShepherd.love. You can also find SoulShepherd.love on Facebook and on Instagram, and keep in touch there. And there's some really interesting stuff, as well as get on Facebook if you're on Facebook, and join the Divine Finances group, because that is going to be really, really cool when things get cooking in that group. And I'll have a link to that in the show notes for you. As always, my loves, I am going to take you out with a song. I put some thought into what kind of song I wanted to share for this, because I always share one of my songs at the end, and I always do it live, unless something goes terribly wrong with the recording, in which case I usually have a backup and I can record. But I like to do it in the moment. If you're a patron, you get to watch/listen to me live, and if not, you still get that live experience. And I decided to share a song called New Moon in Cancer, which is not released anywhere, but it is one I wrote during 2020 when I was reflecting on how I didn't want to go back to the new normal. Perhaps you can relate, or to the old normal, and what a new normal might look like that is more nourishing. And I chose that as the song for today because it is how I look at the type of healing growth that I think you and I are both seeking with our spirituality, Pattie Belle, is like, how can we make a new normal?
Also, that is so perfect for the card you pulled.
What card did I pull?
The world.
Yes. It really is true. And I don't want to ever be too prescriptive when I interpret a card, because I think we all have our different circumstances. But yes, I was really reflecting on what came before and how that could be integrated to make a better future, both personally and less personally. So this is the growth that it's my spiritual growth for the last year, and I hope that my journey speaks to and enhances your journey. That is always my highest wish. I'm really feeling this new moon in Cancer, 'cause I know that the water has the answer for all of my burnt out pieces. And every part of me says, I'm too tired to go on trying. And all the best parts of me are on fire and dying. And I know I'm in there somewhere. And maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time, yeah, I think it's time for a change. You put it on the line, baby, so just be brave. 'Cause no one ever grew up without pain. No one ever grew up without pain. And I know that this life is a gamble, and I'm gonna blow all my dice 'cause I wanna take a ramble. Gonna use this time as a gift. I don't wanna be rude and wasted, and I build my faith out of stubbornness. 'Cause I don't wanna trade my happiness for dollars that'll never buy it back. No, I can't buy that as a wise life path. And maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time, yeah, I think it's time for a change. You put it on the line, yeah, baby, so just be brave. 'Cause no one ever grew up without pain. No one ever grew up without soothsayer, path maker. Everyone turns to you. Are you gonna carry that weight another year? Truth seeker, path taker, tired secret keeper. Are
Are you gonna put it all down and go clear? When you gonna put it all down and go clear? When you gonna put it all down and go clear, my dear? When everyone turns to you, there's only one thing to do. Join the crowd for once and turn to you. And maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time, yeah, I think it's time for, maybe it's time for a change. You put it on the line. Yeah, baby, so just be brave. 'Cause no one ever grew up without pain. No one ever grew up without.
That was such a
That
good
was
feeling performance.
beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you. Gosh, I should have you lead me in a meditation before every performance.
I'm like, is that going to be on the next album?
Who knows? Too many songs. Which is a good problem to have, and I am grateful. So thank you so much. Thank you, Pattie Belle, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this experience and giving us your time and your attention. And I hope that this becomes a meaningful and helpful part of your own journey, whatever it is. Farewell, farewell, my dears, until we meet again.